into elections today, and we want to wish them all the best and pray for them. President Edgar Lungu of the PF, and of course the other parties of Chilimana. Tussling it out to actually see whether President Edgar Lungu maintains or gets another term of office, but the brothers in Zambia are in the election. Now, tomorrow on Pan-African Friday, we'll of course look into the issues of Zambia and just give an in-depth analysis of what the elections are or look like in Zambia. We expect that after today and tomorrow, maybe sometime early next week, we shall have known who the elected president of that country will be. But we want to pray and wish you all the best, the people of Zambia. Now, back from Zambia, and of course wishing the people of Zambia very well, we get to discussions here. And joining me in studios to talk about the implementation of the NRM manifesto. In studios is Mr. Willis Bashasha, the director of the implementation unit, the manifesto implementation unit. You're very welcome, Mr. Bashasha.
Thank you, Jagenda. Good morning, viewers, and good morning to yourself.
Well, I'm also happy to have you this morning, and of course, thank you so much for joining me this morning to talk about the manifesto. Yeah. Very important to us because when you look at the NDP 3, of course, we have up there the Vision 2040, the NDP 3, and of course, the manifesto and the different financial years. Here is where we are, and well, let's just get to the business. Okay. Government is formed from the election that we held on the 14th of January this year. We've seen government taking shape. We have the judiciary fully constituted. We have parliament fully constituted. We have the executive fully constituted. And the other MDs also are here. And here is where we are. Yeah. The next thing that we're waiting to hear or to see from you is service to the people. Yeah. Let's get to the manifesto itself. Have you started implementing it?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Once again, good morning, viewers. I'm glad to be here to share some of the issues as you have raised them. I also want first to thank God for our lives because we have had a rough time managing this global pandemic. I equally want to take this place also to congratulate the new government, and as you have said, all those who have been given the opportunity to serve at different levels. Now, as you rightly said, with the constitution of the different key players along the government delivery chain, definitely the manifesto becomes one of the key reference points as far as service delivery is concerned. And when the government is constituted, the manifesto becomes a blueprint for service delivery. And this has been discussed at different levels. And I want to say that when the president was meeting the cabinet, on top of having his manifesto, he also gave what we call the 23 strategic guidelines and directives. These had also been given to the area cabinet on the onset of the area cabinet of 2016-2021. And I saw now they are coming up again to be part and parcel of the service delivery. So these 23 strategic directives are meant to be like priority of priorities. I'll probably go through them at an appropriate time. But that is where we are. So on behalf of the as the unit or the office of the president, which is responsible for supervising the implementation or tracking the progress of the implementation, we are also rolling our sleeves to begin as everything falls into place as per the planning and budgeting framework. I also need to add that our manifesto, the framers, we are also mindful of the NDP 3 and it's aligned properly so there are no implementation overlaps. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bashasha, here is where we are. Now, looking back to the National Resistance Movement, and I'll just get back to when we started getting into these democratic elections. 1996 to where we are now, we are talking about 5 manifestos. 96, 2001, 2006, 6, 11, 11, 16, 16, 20, 21. And of course now look at the manifesto for 2021, 2026. We may not demand much or even ask for much from the 2021, 2026 manifesto, which has just started being implemented. But gleaning from the past experience of implementation, the implementation of manifestos, how much of this do you achieve? And what fails the other bit if we don't achieve it 100%? Because the social contract with you and the people is for 5 years we expect and we want to do the following for you. At the end of the 5 years, if you don't do everything, what explains why you've not done it all, and how would we even judge that for the 5 years this is what you've been able to achieve?
Thank you very much. And the same question you are raising probably answers why I'm here. So that we could be able to share with Ugandans what exactly we expect. I don't know whether many Ugandans also take trouble to read some of these commitments that are within these social contracts, so that we are able to move together and be able to evaluate how far we have gone as a government in power. Secondly, we have been lucky as a government, as NRM, that we've been able to retain power consecutively, and that also shows that maybe the citizens have been able to appreciate how we have been able to deliver on the commitments we have with them. And the manifesto, like any other plan, may not necessarily be implemented 100%. Of course, along the way, there may be challenges that come and affect the planning. In some cases, there may be policy reversals. But the beauty of this is that because we have been able to sustain the trust of Ugandans, so some of these issues that are not captured, that are not implemented within the given terms, continue to spill over and are concluded in the next terms. You will also bear with me that when you talk of what I would call the flagship projects, which probably are talked about within these manifestos, may have a lifespan of more than five years, which is a term of office of a given, which is a constitutional term of a given term of office. Now, in that respect, it means that some of the implementation aspects will continue, will spill over to other terms, and this has been able to be realized good enough because there has been no change of other government, and it has helped us to be able to conclude on what we are not able to finish in other terms. However, there are all those areas where some commitments are made and they are concluded. I can give you one example, like in the last term, for example, there was a commitment of the revival of the national airline, and this was delivered on fully. So, but there are other areas where, if you look at the road projects, some are still continuing. If you look at these power projects, some are still continuing. They have not been concluded, but they are like in the final stages of conclusion, of which, if they are concluded now, they'll still be handed over to Ugandans.
Okay. Well, now I want to look at the multi-sectoral coordination that we have. We now talk about the implementation of the manifesto. And we know very well that, yes, it is at the office of the Prime Minister where our implementation, supervision and monitoring machinery actually is. And the question here will be that there is normally this quest for service delivery, because at the end of the day, when we elect leaders, we are looking for services. When the President appoints cabinet members, he is appointing people who are supposed to serve and deliver services to us. But we get to levels where we get to auditing, and we think, or we question the services given to us, and keep having all these issues back and forth to say, why is this and not that? What happens is when we talk about now the people who are supposed to execute this, to implement this, to give us the services, are all of them conversant with this, or when we get into working or serving, everybody thinks they should do what they think is right and disregarding the manifesto itself? Do we follow the manifesto as a Bible that we use for preaching the gospel?
I want to agree with you to some extent, and I want to say that that's what the role of this unit has tried to play in trying to up the game as far as implementation of this manifesto is concerned. And as you rightly said, those are what we may call implementational challenges, and we take note of them equally. And the coordination, yes, is there at the Office of the Prime Minister, but you are aware that the Office of the President plays this oversight role as the chief executive office of the country. And the coming in of this unit, and I believe the wisdom behind it, was to be sure whether these commitments, as they are made and as we come into government, what happens to them. And this is where we are coming in to say part of the implementation strategies, one, is to bring to the attention of the Secretary to the Treasury, Permanent Secretary to the Treasury, that some of these, as part of his budget core circular, there is need for emphasis of this, that as you plan, as you budget, please be mindful of the key manifesto commitments. Now, crossing over there, we have also moved as part of implementation strategy to write to all the permanent secretaries in government by my PS to create what we would call manifesto focal persons. And these are people within the planning departments or monitoring and evaluation areas of each entities. And this is to help to be able to realize that as they plan, as they budget, there is a need to capture these areas so that people, as the term goes on, we don't have questions of why did you pledge this and it is not captured. And this is where we come in also to audit or to track and say where these areas in your respective ministerial policy statements or how far have we gone on the areas that have been earmarked but are being played under your docket. As if that's not enough, the Parliament also, that's why actually want to appreciate the Office of the Government Chief Whip, which also coordinates Parliament in making sure that there will be a legislative agenda, there will be a policy agenda, which must support the implementation process of some of these commitments that are being proposed. Now, beyond this, also the President proposed what we call the Parliamentary Advisory Committee on Budget. This is also supposed to look through the budget frameworks and other policies and see whether as we go into the budgeting cycle, where these areas properly captured, so that we do not have a situation where you are in government and you pledged to do this, and then later people asking what could have happened. So there is strong coordination, and that's why this unit now strongly believes in working very closely with the Office of the Government Chief Whip, the Office of the Secretary General, so that we realize and from time to time and we update each other on how we can now move in terms of the implementation process.
Now, thank you so much, Ndugu Bashasha.
Yeah.
And of course, your submission brings with my next question, which of course I want to ask you here, isn't there an overlap of mandates and responsibilities or duties that you do? You just talked about the Government Chief Whip, and of course I was going to ask you about the Government Chief Whip because what we just want to know, the Government Chief Whip is a cabinet position in this country. You talked about the Parliamentary Advisory Committee on Budget. We're talking about the party secretary itself. What is the party supposed to do? Because the only time we see the party very active in activities, we see them in the media, we see them everywhere, is when there is a party primary election, when there is a by-election, or when there is a general election. That's when we see the party in the media, they shine and do all the things. But yet again, they are charged with this particular manifesto because it is a party manifesto that the people vote for and say, we are voting for this to secure our future. Now, where is the party itself in the daily implementation of this manifesto? Then let's go to the other departments like the Ministry of Economic Monitoring. Now we tend to think that what you are possibly doing here is what the Ministry of Economic Monitoring is doing, following on the President's pledges, following on the implementation of the manifesto, and quite a number of things. Don't we see a duplication of roles here, that we get to a level where if Mr. Bashasha does not do his bit, he leaves it to some other person and says maybe it's supposed to be the Government Chief Whip or the Minister of Economic Monitoring or the Secretary General of the party and all the things?
I want to say that that is not true because all these offices as they are created, They have their mandates, and they are very clear, and there is no overlap. We are only saying we need to coordinate for purposes of synergy, and that's all. Otherwise, I have not seen this clash. My mandate as a unit is very clear. The mandate of the Director of Economic Affairs is very clear. The Chief Whip, I guess, is very clear because that's a cabinet position. The party secretariat and the party mandate is also very clear. And we also have areas where we, like I said, where we meet and share, because part of my mandate is to liaise with them and probably update each other on how we are moving. And in terms of even following through when we are in the countryside, meeting the local government leaders, it also gives us the opportunity to meet the party leaders at that level for purposes of information and validation. So I don't see any problem with that. And for us, we are like a technical unit within the office of the president, the public service structure, which follows up through within the entire technical spectrum of government. So there is no clash.
There is no clash, there is no conflict. So when you come in, when does the implementation unit now come in? Are you part of making the manifesto itself, or you wait at the tail end of implementation of it?
Yes, we are part in a sense that sometimes we provide data for purposes of seeing which areas the manifesto commitments wants to come. That may be a party responsibility, but we come in at the end of providing data. For example, how are we moving on given areas? Where are we? And now, what do we how do we need to move forward? And what are the areas or the challenges that were met in the course of implementation?
Okay.
Yeah.
We have similar other policies or programs of government. For example, we are talking about the parish development model. I think in 2004, we had what we call the plan for the mechanization or modernization of agriculture, the PMA, which of course introduced to us all these things, NADS, and quite a number of them. It was anchored on 7 pillars. Now we have the parish development model also anchored on 7 pillars. We're looking at it. And we also have the manifesto here, and I would just want to know whether our priorities in the manifesto are the same or are in tandem with what we're now running with. For example, we now talk about the parish development model, and we think, yes, it's a good way to go, and at the end of the day, it may give us what we are actually desiring as a country. But is it one of the priorities in the manifesto? I just want to know, because even with the manifesto, we have priorities that we run with, and I'd say, if anything doesn't work out, at least this has to work out by all means. We can't say we failed on everything, and we can't say we achieved on everything.
Yes. I want to agree with you that the parish model, actually right away from NDP 3, that's been looked at from the planning framework. That's taken care of. The manifesto equally captures it as one of the priority areas. And for us, at the manifesto, they are looking at it as an epicenter of how whatever we have been looking at on the key priorities of creating wealth and jobs, delivering education, health and water, and like ensuring justice and equity, protecting life and property, we are saying the parish model should be the epicenter of the transformation. And therefore, like you rightly said, it's there. It's within the manifesto. And now for us, it will be very important to look at what are the constituents of that success, who is supposed to be delivering on them, and that's where we shall be coming to say we need reporting or accountability to citizens on how far we have been able on the journey to make sure the manifesto, the parish model works. So we have it in the manifesto, good enough, like I said. The manifesto is also aligned to the planning framework. The NDP 3 also talks about this. So it's not like it's so unique with us at the manifesto level or peculiar with the at the manifesto level, and it's not captured at that level. So now that the broader framework also has provisions for that, then it makes it very easy. Now for us at this level of the implementation monitoring, it will be incumbent upon us to see of those 7 pillars we are talking about, which are the responsible agencies of government that are supposed to deliver on it. If it is about financing, if it is about agriculture, so who is responsible for that? And for us, we would want updates from time to time on, to update our reports on how far have you been able to deliver on that area which is responsible within your docket of agents of government. Yes.
So do these different, the different MDAs
Yes.
of government, do they follow this manifesto to the latter? And I just want to know, because we know that there is the Third National Development Plan now, for example, the NDP3, and we expect that for every individual ministry, department, or agency of government has to do their planning, their 5-year plan or 10-year plan, whatever it is, when they are cognizant of what the priorities of our NDP3 are. And I just want to know whether they also look critically onto this. And because you are the implementation unit
Yes.
of the manifesto, where are you at that level? How do you supervise them? How do you see them? How do you, because if Department X, Y, or Z has produced a plan, and that's what they have, do you look into it to actually say, this is the priority in our manifesto, but it's not captured in this very key department of government that it should deliver this?
Thank you very much for that question. Let me first create the impression that we are called a manifesto implementation unit, but we are not directly involved in the implementation.
Okay.
The implementation process is done by the different ministries,
Departments and
and
agencies.
agencies of government. For us, we do the tracking, monitoring, publicity of all these, which is part of accountability. Now, as you rightly said, part of the engagement that we have with these MDAs on the course of starting the implementation process is for them to see what are the commitments, the different commitments that are being talked about in the manifesto. And what plans do you have, the 5-year period plan, the implementation plan for those commitments. So now where we are going to go is we shall be demanding, we want to see how are you prepared to implement this? For example, you may find that we are saying we want to provide 5,000 kilometers of roads within this manifesto. And now it is incumbent upon the Ministry of Works to tell us on these 5,000 kilometers, how are you going about them within the 5 years? And depending on the resources available. Then within those 5,000 kilometers, beyond how you want to go about them, then it is also incumbent to see where do they fall, because these may be different roads across the country. So this means that now we shall be having an engagement where one comes out to say, these are the commitments I'm supposed to deal within this 5-year period. This is the way I have spread them out. These are the priorities, depending on how we want to approach them, but also depending on how the chairman or His Excellency the President or the party puts emphasis on that one. For example, we now have like a challenge of COVID. So if the issue is like, let's first equip our health centers. Now that means in the 5-year plan, much as we are talking about improving health infrastructure, so we would say equipment maybe takes precedence within the first 2 years of this implementation plan. And when that is done, probably we can shift to other areas as we move on the implementation chain. So it is true that these MDAs need to take this up, come out with a clear plan. And it's against that plan that we shall be assessing them and measuring them. For as far as we are concerned, on the onset of the plan of your implementation, you showed us this is this. So how far? Is it a question of resources? Were resources provided? And if they are provided, why is this not done? And if it is not done, then through this, for us, we are now supposed to generate a report, either for the attention of cabinet and for the executive, to say, here there was a challenge. Maybe there are no resources. We need more resources. Either you borrow or you give priority to this area, or if not, you have a policy reversal. Maybe this is not possible within the circumstances.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Mr. Bashasha, hold it here. We'll take a break and return. To our viewers out there, we are discussing the manifesto implementation of the National Resistance Movement. And with me in studios is Mr. Willis Bashasha, the director for the manifesto implementation unit. We'll take a break and return shortly.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Experience 100% 4G speeds across Uganda with the Airtel 4G Pocket Wi-Fi available at 123,000 shillings only. It comes with 15 GB free for 1 month. Visit the nearest Airtel shop, device selling shop, or Airtel online shop. www.airtel.co.ug/broadband-discover. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa only if we stay at home, observe physical distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly, or get vaccinated now.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Well, thank you so much, and we continue our discussion here about the manifesto implementation. And with me in studios is Mr. Willis Bashasha, the Director, Manifesto Implementation Unit, here with me this morning to talk about issues of implementing the NRM manifesto. And we talk about the manifesto 2021-2026, of course, which is just underway and getting to it. What were the priorities, Ndugu Bashasha, of the securing your future manifesto?
Yeah.
What were these priorities, and what are we now doing? Because in Uganda, in Uganda we have a proverb that says "Entamu ewulira kusoka." You know, when you place your pot on fire, it feels that first fire. Then you know that actually this pot will be able to make me a meal. If you cook forever and the entamu doesn't feel the fire, then you might end up not eating. So where are we in the initial stages of the Chisanja?
Thank you very much. I think the first step was the formation of government, as you said. And as the government takes shape, now it's incumbent upon each of them to start looking at what were the commitments that are put in this manifesto that I am responsible for. And this is, we have already written to the respective ministries, departments, and agencies of government to get to the manifesto, dissect it, look at the areas of commitments. And as you are aware now, government is shifting from sectoral approach to program approach, which I think is a better way, because now this will give now a broader outlook approach in dealing with the issues. Because if the issue like agriculture has been a problem, now we are talking of agro-processing as a program. So that means we have to look at agriculture, look at trade, look at water, look at roads, and these all need to sit together in a program delivery chain and see what is your contribution on each of these areas in that program to be able to deliver on that program chain as prescribed by the NDP. Now, for us, we'll be coming in as usual to say, yes, along agro-industrialization, agriculture is supposed to play this role, and in the manifesto, we are talking about either reducing the number of household from this to this. So how are we moving? Where are we? And this is what we would want to see, and this is what we would want to be accountable on as a government at a later stage. We said this contract, we said we are going to reduce this, and this is how we are performing. So the key priorities that were captured in this manifesto were largely 5. It's around 5 thematic areas: creating wealth and jobs. This is, here we are looking at commercialization of agriculture. We are looking at industrialization. We are looking at ICT, and services. And then the other pillar in this is, the other thematic area is delivering health, education, and water. This is all about our capital development and standards of living. There are different details which I may not go through now. And then the third area is ensuring justice and equity. A society which is not is denied of justice or is not having equal as provided for within the charters of human rights cannot be okay. So the manifesto is mindful of that, and it's been part of the emphasis. That ensures democracy and other aspects. Then we have the protecting of life and property as another thematic area. And then lastly, we have the achievement of economic and political integration. Now, these are the 5 thematic areas. And I also want to emphasize here that even as you said, from the moment we went into a Maripate dispensation, all these areas have always been anchored. The proposals, the commitments have always been anchored in the 3 or 4 areas that constitute our ideology: patriotism,
socio-economic transformation,
all those. So you realize that every time the manifesto is being crafted, the framers are always mindful of these issues. However, I also wanted to highlight that the president has also insisted that within these 5 years, these are the kind of characteristics you would want to see in his government, or the kind of outlook, the way the government is moving. One of those is cohesion. He would like to see government properly coordinated and moving together. And he has emphasized this many times, because you always see maybe members of the same arm of government in conflict, in contradiction, and he's wondering why, and that impacts negatively on the policy direction of government. Secondly, is the issue of corruption. He said he would want to see a corrupt-free government. The third one is how best we can consolidate the integration of regional markets. It goes back to the other pillar of economic and political integration. Then the other issue is patriotism. Why us as Ugandans do not want to really serve our country with one heart. And then, of course, the last one was faultless service delivery. It comes back to, you'll see each of them, there is a way how it reinforces the other. If there is cohesion, there's no corruption, we are able to consolidate, then we'll be patriotic, then we can be talking of a faultless service delivery.
Okay, you talk about one of your core ideologies, which is socio-economic transformation. And the president of this country, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, has repeatedly spoken and addressed us on socio-economic transformation. But when you look at socio-economic transformation, you also notice that we put a lot of emphasis on economic transformation and not majorly on social transformation. But because we combine the words to socio-economic transformation, it just keeps running like that. I personally tend to think there's a deficit on social transformation as opposed to economic transformation, because much of our efforts that we do developing and transforming our economy as opposed to the social lives of our people. You talked about agriculture here, commercialization of agriculture. Now, you would imagine and think that, yes, this is one of the things that would help us to socially transform our people. But yet again, how possible is this? Because a commercialized agriculture, it seems to be very expensive. We are talking about people who live on land that is very fragmented. We are talking about people who are just keeping a poultry. I'm just imagining keeping 200 chicken in your house, 200 poultry birds. The cost of actually keeping those is not an ordinary Ugandan affair. When you talk about growing something for the market, not so many Ugandans have a plantation that they can get a whole truck or whatever it is for bananas to bring them to Nakasero, to Owino, anywhere. And that's what we think should be helping us. But we have people who do not have the capacities to actually get there. What is this commercial agriculture that we want to get to when we agree that the majority, 60+% of Ugandans live on agriculture for livelihood?
Okay, now you have mixed up a lot of things.
Given you very many.
I don't know where to start and where to end. But let me first get it from you. What, from your perspective, what would you say these are indicators of social transformation, because you are saying we are putting emphasis on economic transformation at the expense of social transformation. So I wanted to get it right. What would be the indicators, for example, so that now you tell me, you see, we here, this is an indicator of social transformation, but you are emphasizing this. Then I give you reasons probably why the thinking of government has behaved that way.
For example, I may not give you the indicators X, Y, Z, but just look at the social fiber, for example, itself. That we have a society where we grow, and the cycle is actually the same. That we have children giving birth to children, and at a very young age of 30, 40, somebody is already a grandparent. They've not possibly attained education. The people that they're bringing up have not gone to school. Yesterday, the president was awarding medalists at Kololo. Yes, and one of our golden girls, my Chemtai, actually said, I did my primary 7, went to S1, I dropped out. She's in she's a 22-year-old. Now, 22 years, you would imagine that she's gone through university. She's running, and maybe now she drops out, she gets into the forces. God graces her, and she actually takes her to, God takes her to Olympics, and that's where she is. But there are many Chemtais at 22 who dropped out of school. Their mothers of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 children. The best they can do is grow the children. Now, at the time the children are growing, they are getting older, the children are coming up, and a mother who dropped out of S1 does not think about taking their children to a university. And the cycle is, because even when we build so many roads, we revamp the airline, we do flyovers and all the things, when we have people who do not appreciate the value of these things, when we put a lot of effort on the economic transformation, and the social lives of the people is not developed.
First of all, if you have been listening to the president very, very keenly, he has been saying, yes, we have done these things, we have built roads, we have moved electricity, we have brought water, but I am still concerned, because what will save you at the end of the day is what is in your pocket. And he has been very emphatic on this. And he has come out with different strategies. And I believe if you have read this manifesto, some of these issues are properly captured. Even when you look at why we are insisting on the PDM model, the Paris Development Model, he's trying to say, how can I take development closer to the household, and this household can have an income. I believe that all these economic transformation agendas have been intended to grow our economy, expand our economy, and give opportunities to Ugandans so that they can improve their household incomes. And at that level, until that issue of household income or individual pocket income is solved, then you can now bring in why we have these issues. And I can also say that it's high time we also looked at our education system, because we cannot say everybody can go through an education system and be a university graduate. Let's also look at opportunities that can be there and can be developed. For example, talent identification. Cheptegei, maybe, I don't know how she was performing in class. I don't know where she dropped, whether she dropped out because of school fees or because of her mental capacity. But you can see she's gifted with a talent, which has now taken her to another level.
And gifted her.
Exactly. And so these are the areas we also need to look at as a government. How else can citizenry be exposed or supported to develop these other skills that are not necessarily through the formal education, but can also be useful to them and to their lives, and can also bring probably good image to the country, and can also be a transformational way or medium through which they can change. Because we have seen these rich footballers in Europe coming back home, also establishing social projects, either hospitals or seeing how they can support their home. So I know that the government has been very, very mindful of this. You had the other day, they have appointed an education review commission, But before then, there has been other interventions made, like curriculum review of the curriculum, and the sports have also taken center stage in our education system. We have a specific minister responsible for sports. We are also looking at other areas of talent development. I think at one time they had issues to do with copyrights, of which now I think a bill was introduced to Parliament and passed so that you can protect these talents of young people who are gifted with singing, so that their efforts at the end of the day are not watered down because their products are pirated on. So I think I agree with you to an extent that it is necessary, but we can now expand our thinking on the way we plan and on the way we intervene on some of these challenges that may be there. And I'm glad that within this manifesto, there are some areas which are being proposed to deal with these kind of issues we are raising here.
Before I get to the mindset bit of it, on commercialized agriculture, who can do commercial agriculture in this country? Because yes, I have listened to the president on so many occasions singing and talking about the Echida Chonka should stop. But if you notice, majority of our bashashas and the semakolas can actually only do agriculture for Echida Chonka. We all don't want this because we have a lot of force in the subsistence sector. But how should we get it to that commercial bit of it?
Well, the starting point is what you have touched on, the mindset, the thinking that this is not possible, whereas it is possible. Of course, the other area which is of interest is the land issue, of which now land has become more political than a factor of production. But if you look at this parish model and what it is proposing, becoming an epicenter of the transformation, we are looking at issues like what is the data available? For example, what is the land holding at that level at your parish in your area? What is the land holding of most of the members? So if we have that data, that should be able to guide the planning at that level. So what kind of enterprises that can be given to support these people in circumstances of the land holding that there is. And therefore, this will be very, very critical because even the president has been talking about you don't have to have a big land. You can have a small piece of land, 4 acres or 1 acre. But the question is, how can we identify high-value enterprises that can be done on that area? Because commercialization doesn't mean you have to go, you have to have ranches, you have to have whatever. No, it is all about what you are doing, and you are doing it with the purpose of delivering it to a market. And then there is also another angle that is coming in, which I think also Operation Wealth Creation has been trying to support. This is the issue of the value addition. So if you have your 2 cows of dairy, and they can give each can give you 30 liters, those are 60 liters, and you have maybe a small machine that can turn this into cheese, can turn this into yogurt and whatever. You're already commercial. You're already commercial, and then you start supplying. So it's no longer now that the milk that you are getting from your cows specifically goes into the consumption and the story ends there. No.
Or even powering it.
Or even powering it. So now we are saying
too much for you.
That all these will be addressed when you read what the transformation agenda is all about. It's about that, first of all, the production, then the value addition, and then I think also looking at the markets in that respect, because it's also not fair to people to start producing and they are, you give them very good high yields, the intensive high yields. Somebody can yield so much in a small area than before, but then at the end of the day, like I said, there is no market because we will have overproduction, and then people will now start saying, oh, this is not possible. So I want us to have a mindset of commercial agriculture, not from looking at it from this big things that, I need a square mile to do this, I need 7 tractors to do this, but you can still be small holding, and big commercial.
Okay.
And big commercial.
Okay.
Yes.
On the issue of mindset, because it's very important, it's talked about in the parish development model, but it's also talked about as one of the thematic areas in the NDP3.
Yes.
Yes. Whose mindset are we talking about here? Because when we talk about addressing mindset, we are basically looking at we, the Wananchi,
Yes.
not the Rashashas who are in government offices or in parliament even.
That could be worse.
But
You even find the Wananchi are much more liberated than some
that's
of
why I need to know whose mindset. Whose mindset are we talking about to change?
Yes. So in this respect, I think some research was done, and I think it's not out of the blue that this intervening area is being proposed right away from that level of national planning, and then also trying to cascade it to even at the implementation level. You will realize that many of us could be suffering from a poverty of mind. That's what they say. And that unless we have, we get liberated out of that, we may stay thinking that this is not possible. We are poor, maybe like it's a destiny or God-given, that kind of thinking. So I think the issue of mindset change is trying to help cause a shift from the way sometimes we look at things. I will tell you that when we were growing up, if you are not gone to the university, would be looked at probably as an outcast. So all of us were working towards that. It is not about even at the end of the day what course you are doing there, but at least God has made you reach the university, and therefore you can tell your parents. And
there was only one university at that time, so you had to go to that university.
Secondly, these other areas like the technical education, which offers skills that are more relevant in the job market, were not looked at. So going to technical education, technical education line was like, you are a failure academically. But now, come into reality. This man who goes to technical education, he may not even need a job. From there, maybe he needs a spanner, and the next day, he can get a contract to go and fix your house. And within months or years, the man can even employ other people to support him and help him as he does his work. Now, here you are. You have come from Makerere with your document. You start roaming the streets. 2, 3, 4 years, you are still roaming the street. You are still dependent on your father's whatever. So we have now to start telling our people that, these are the skills that are relevant. It's not about going and getting a degree. You can come and do this, and then you are able to survive because these are the skills that are needed in the job market. So in that respect, this is all about mindset. The same applies to many other areas that affect us. Look at us even who are in public offices. We are still suffering from the change of leaving offices and going into the outside world and participating in other economic activities. You think as if there is no office job, then you are not there. You understand? So these are, and it's a mind problem. So we need to get liberated out of that and start going and saying, no, at this age I should have planned myself properly. I go out and go and do other things and contribute to the economy. Not to stay here, then even when you are 75, you are still insisting, extend my contract, that kind of thinking.
Okay. Yes. Well, I want to thank you so much, Mr. Bashasha. We have about 2.5 minutes to be out of studios. Your final comment on the manifesto implementation itself, and to just let us know, when we implement the manifesto, have we implemented it 100%, or we get to some manageable levels where we think, yes, we couldn't do everything, but at least we did something that is very commendable as we get out of studios?
Thank you. Like I said, a manifesto, these are intended, these are planned issues, and like any other plan, along the way, it can be affected by the changes along the implementation chain. So on the onset, it is always the interest of the planner that I will achieve 100%. It's like setting off from home saying, I'm going to Kampala. Your target is to reach Kampala, but maybe along the way, you get an accident. Or along the way, the vehicle you are traveling in runs out of fuel. Maybe you are targeting to be there by this time, and it is not possible. So equally, in the same principle of looking at things, it happens even in the government. Like there are areas which we thought we would work on, and they would trigger the economy at the onset of 2016, 2021. One of those was the SGR. We had also thought that maybe by 2018 we would have concluded the FIDs in oil and gas sector, but you can see now most of them were concluded towards the end of the term. The SGR now is still part of the negotiation process. So we, for example, experienced COVID towards the end of the term. This is something that we didn't know. And because of that, some resources had to be shifted to cause a stopgap measure in as far as saving lives is concerned. So the mind of the planner at the onset is that this is what I can do within this period, and it's my intention to achieve it 100%. But sometimes it is not possible because naturally there are always those challenges that come along.
I very much want to thank you so much, Mr. Willis Bashasha, for having allowed to join us here. And I think we will still need to follow you up because you are seated at the implementation unit, and we need to know. At the end of the day, when NRM comes back to us to ask for a vote, we need to be able to ask you to actually give accountability to us.
We actually need a robust publicity and as far as the steps in the implementation process is concerned. So that pledge is most welcome, and I hope we'll continue working together on that.
We open to that. Thank you very much, Mr. Bashasha. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Jagad Asembakola Ziksoka. We'll return tomorrow on a Pan-African Friday. And of course, we'll look into the issues of Zambia as they get into elections today. For God and my country, thank you, Mr. Bashasha. Stay blessed and keep safe. Remember to wear your mask in public and wear it rightly. A social distance wherever you can. Sanitize and wash your hands with water and soap. That's the only way we'll be able to fight the pandemic of COVID-19. And remember, if you can access the vaccines next to you wherever they are, please go also and receive a vaccine because it's one of the proven ways for which we can curtail and fight this COVID disease. Thank you so much. For God and my country, stay blessed. Good morning. Thank you.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.